What's up guys, it's Will back again, and today's review is the biographical drama film The Disaster Artist. Directed by James Franco and based on the book of the same name written by Greg Sestero and Tom Bissell, The Disaster Artist primarily takes place in the late 90s and early 2000s, where two aspiring actors in Tommy Wiseau and Greg Sestero meet up, become friends, and move to Los Angeles to pursue their dreams of becoming actors. After a lack of breaks, Tommy eventually decides to write, direct, produce, and star in his own movie called The Room, and he recruits Greg to play the second lead, and after that the two go through the crazy trials and tribulations of making their own movie, which would eventually become the 2003 cult classic known as The Room. Alright, so this was easily one of my most anticipated movies of the year. I'm a big fan of The Room because I'm a big fan of so bad it's good movies and shows, and there's not that many out there that do it as well as The Room does. I've watched it probably like 3 or 4 times, and it honestly never gets old. It's so bad, but it never fails to keep me entertained. The Room has become a cult classic for a reason. It's infamously bad, and the mystery surrounding Tommy Wiseau and where he comes from and where he got the $6 million to make The Room, it's all just really intriguing, and it's hard to not want to know exactly what drove him to envision this movie the way he did and actually make The Room the way he did. It's really just all a mystery, but luckily there is a book that talks about this kind of stuff called The Disaster Artist, which is exactly what this movie is based on. I actually read The Disaster Artist 2, the book written by Greg Sestero, who plays Mark in The Room, Tommy's supposed best friend in real life. Great book, by the way, read it if you can, but this film is definitely more in line with the work of The Disaster Artist, the book, than it is the work of The Room. It has some comedy, but this is not a so bad it's good type of movie. It's just a really good movie that tells a really unique story about unlikely friendships, dreamers, and self-fulfillment. It's a comedy in some ways, but this is definitely a drama film first and foremost, and it's a damn good one at that. The Disaster Artist really dives fairly deep into the motivations of both Tommy and Greg, and of course their unlikely friendship that led them to create a film that's one of the most unlikely successes in cinema history. I love that approach that The Disaster Artist takes because it doesn't just ride the wave of nostalgia that a movie about the making of The Room offers. It instead pulls back the curtain and provides a really compelling behind-the-scenes look at the creators of this cult classic and their journey. What I loved about this movie is exactly what I loved about the book, getting to see exactly what led Tommy Wiseau to create The Room in the first place and what led these two dreamers to connect and bond with each other along the way. That's what makes this movie great. The development and the friendship between the two main characters and the ups and downs along the way. How they motivate and inspire and even resent each other at times makes for some really awesome drama, and that's exactly what I was looking for out of this movie. Here's one question you're probably gonna have. Do I need to see The Room before I watch The Disaster Artist? It obviously helps, but I don't necessarily feel that it's essential. I think you could certainly enjoy The Disaster Artist without seeing The Room first because it does a pretty good job being its own movie and not just like remaking The Room or anything like that. I think you could know very little about Greg Sestero or Tommy Wiseau, and you could still definitely find yourself really captivated by this film. It's an A24 movie, and A24 knows drama, and they do it well. You're also probably wondering how James and Dave Franco do respectively in their roles. Probably James Franco more so because Tommy is such a difficult character to play. You know, I was actually pretty worried when I saw the trailers, and I thought James Franco's impersonation was, kind of not the best. I thought it didn't really sound much like Tommy at all, and I thought this would just be a poor imitation and that it would probably be distracting for me, but I actually found the opposite to be true. Funny how trailers sometimes work that way. James Franco is really great here, and I think he's got an Oscar nomination coming his way this February. I don't think the impersonation is completely spot on all the time, but I think he just acted the character as a whole really, really well. I don't think he has to nail the accent perfectly every single time to do well in the role. He proved to be quite the awesome Tommy Wiseau, despite the fact that I kinda expected him not to be. Dave Franco is also really good too. He definitely is way less of an impersonation of Greg than James Franco is of Tommy, but I found myself really invested in Dave Franco's interpretation of Greg. The way he portrayed Greg as a dreamer, but the more reasonable and level-headed actor of the duo was something the film needed. You needed that voice of reason to balance out Tommy's craziness, and that's exactly what Dave Franco brings as Greg. He did a great job. You're also probably wondering how funny this movie is, and the answer to that is funny enough. Whenever they attempt comedy, it works, but make no mistake about it, like I said, this is a drama film first and foremost. The comedy is there and it adds some lightheartedness to the story every so often, but this is a story about dreamers and their unlikely friendship and success story. That's where the focus is, and that's where the film succeeds at the highest level, and personally I love that. Because if you have too much comedy, especially in just recreating iconic scenes from The Room, then it would just kind of feel like you're remaking The Room, but that's definitely not what happens here. When comedy is implemented, it's thrown written in a way that either sheds light on the friendship between Greg and Tommy, or just shows how eccentric and fearless Tommy is basically everywhere. There's only one problem I have with this film, and it may just be because I read the book. This movie is about an hour and 40 minutes long, and I feel like they rushed through certain moments that would have better explained their friendship and just the turmoil on set while making The Room. This movie moves at a really quick pace, and sometimes I just wish it slowed down just a tad to dig into the intricacies just a little bit more. Like I said, that may just be a book reader issue, but I think the runtime probably should have been just a tad longer just to dig a little bit deeper. But overall, The Disaster Artist was great. It definitely met my expectations, and I'm honestly looking forward to seeing it again. I thought it had a great story about dreamers and friendships, excellent performances, nice touches of comedy, and great character development. The only con is the pacing. I think it moves just a little too fast every so often. Overall though, I'm still going to give The Disaster Artist a 9.5 out of 10 and definitely recommend you check this one out whether you've seen The Room or not. It'll help if you have, but I think you could still enjoy it either way. So did you guys see The Disaster Artist yet? What did you think of it? And if not, let me know why not. And also let me know whether you've seen The Room and what you think about it. If you haven't seen it, you probably should watch it as soon as possible. And of course, if you read The Disaster Artist book, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it as well. Let's discuss it in the comments. Before we wrap up, I want to apologize for not getting as many videos as usual out this week. I've been incredibly busy working on some big videos, and I'm planning to diversify this channel's offerings in the coming year. Lots of big videos in the works, so stay tuned for those. That's all for now though. This is WillFoxification signing off. See you in the next video.